This is the Sri Nand Baba Temple, located in the town of Nandgaon in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh. It's usually a rather sleek, whitish-gray building, but what's with all the clouds of psychedelic colors going on down here? Chaos seems to have broken out all over the neighborhood. Kids are spraying adults with water guns, women are attacking men with sticks, and everyone's covered in a layer of colored powder. Well, this is northern India during the Hindu festival of Holi, a celebration that rings in the coming of spring, and depending on where you are, a celebration that can be something of a free-for-all. And by the end, you'll look like a walking human art project. Now, before we go any further, I need to add a giant disclaimer to everything I'm about to say. Hinduism, as we've seen before on this channel, is an incredibly diverse religion. It varies not only by devotional sect, but also by geographic region, and its holidays, even the more universal ones like Holi, are observed in different ways. I'll try my best to capture as much of that diversity as I can in a short video, but there's a lot of detail that will inevitably be left out. Feel free to share in the comments if there are any aspects of Holi not represented here. With that caveat out of the way, let's discuss what is Holi. Holi happens every year on the last full moon of the Hindu month of Falguna, which lines up roughly with mid-February to mid-March on the Gregorian calendar. The Hindu calendar is a lunar-solar calendar with 12 months, tied both to lunar cycles and seasonal shifts that are ritually and agriculturally significant. Falguna is the last month of winter, and Holi marks the transition into spring or Vasanta. And the shift into spring is a major theme of the festival, along with the harvest, love, a general sense of renewal, and like the festival of Diwali, the victory of good over evil. Now, Holi and similar springtime festivals are mostly celebrated in northern India, but you'll find variations across South Asia and even around the world. But the festival's two most common and recognizable activities are number 1, the lighting of bonfires, and 2, the playful and messy throwing of colors, and sometimes more than just colors, as we'll see. Holi celebrations stretch over a night and a day, and the bonfires happen on the first night. In northern India, they represent the triumph of good over evil through the burning of a demon named Holika, in a ritual called Holika Dahan. But in southern India, it's generally the god of love and desire Kama who gets burned. It's the following day that gives us the most iconic images, crowds of people covered in bright colors. People play Holi with family, friends, neighbors, and anyone who happens to get in the way of their colored powders and water guns. During Holi, society's usual expectations get tossed out the window, at least for a little while. People, regardless of caste, class, age, gender, or religion, suddenly find themselves in a chaotic free-for-all. The festival creates this temporary space where social boundaries blur, and mischief takes over. And when I say mischief, I do mean mischief. Apart from powders and dyes, some people will throw anything and everything. Rocks, clay pots, and even cow dung and urine. Yeah, it can get wild, and a special drink called a bhang lassi, a green smoothie made with liquefied cannabis leaves, let's just say helps keep the party going. But once the dust and whatever else settles, things go back to normal. People head home, bathe, and spend the rest of the day celebrating with family. So where did the festival come from? References to Holi or a Holi-like festival can be found in texts dating back centuries, though where and when it exactly originated is unknown. A festival sometimes referred to as Holika can be spotted in several different texts. For example, a collection of poems called the Satasai, dating roughly to the 3rd to 7th centuries CE, gives us a glimpse of how Holi would have been celebrated over 1,000 years ago in the region now known as Maharashtra. These poems are all about love in its many forms, joyful, messy, and sometimes a little chaotic and confusing, and they depict Holi as a time for adolescent boys and girls who were normally kept pretty segregated in pre-modern India to play and flirt with one another more openly. One poem reads, "Trembling and bouncing with excitement, she holds a handful of colored powder to throw at her lover, but it has turned into perfumed water." Then there's the after-party cleanup. "Foolish girl, why are you still washing the red powder from your soft palms that are by nature pink as a spray of coral?" Even though we can't say for sure when or where Holi first started, there are at least 3 sacred narratives linked with the celebration: the burning of Holika, the burning and revival of the love god Kama, and the romantic legend of the god Krishna with his beloved consort Radha. The first story linked with Holi appears in various forms in the Bhagavata Purana and the Vishnu Purana. The Asura Hiranyakashipu was a tyrant who aspired to rule over all worlds and usurp the power of the gods themselves. And thanks to a boon from the creator god Brahma, he was almost invincible. According to the Sanskrit texts called the Puranas, he couldn't be killed by any created being, nor in heaven, on earth, in the daytime, at night, from neither above nor below. Just one thing stood in the way of his plot for world domination. His own son Prahlada refused to recognize his sovereignty because Prahlada was a devotee of the god Vishnu and he wouldn't stop singing the god's praises. Hiranyakashipu, being the kind of ruler who didn't take well to insubordination, tried everything to get his son killed. He sent soldiers, snakes, and elephants after the boy, but his steadfast devotion to Vishnu saved him every time. Hiranyakashipu wasn't done trying to get rid of him though, so he turned to his sister Holika for help. She also had a special boon of her own, one that made her immune to fire, so she and her brother came up with a plan. She would take Prahlada onto a pyre, hold him in her lap, and let the flames consume him while she remained untouched. Problem solved, right? Well, not exactly. His devotion to Vishnu was so great that the god interceded on his behalf once again, and miraculously Holika's fire resistance was transferred to him, so she died while he lived. Eventually Vishnu showed up to save the day in the form of an avatar known as the Man-Lion, Narasimha. After battling with Hiranyakashipu, he lifted the king up off the ground and killed him at dusk and at the threshold of a doorway, technically finding a loophole in his invincibility, since he couldn't be killed in heaven, on earth, in the daytime, at night, from neither above nor below. And with Hiranyakashipu defeated, Prahlada was crowned king in his place, and his unwavering devotion to Vishnu was rewarded. And that fiery end for Holika is the inspiration for Holika Dahan, the ritual bonfire on the first night of Holi, symbolizing the triumph of good over evil. The next story tied to Holi explains the ritual of Kama Dahanam. According to the Vamana Purana, the god Shiva was mourning his recently deceased wife Sati, which attracted the attention of Kama, the god of love and desire. Now, Kama carries a bow and arrows that don't physically harm their targets, but instead fill them with uncontrollable passion, and he decided that the grieving Shiva is his next mark. His first arrow causes Shiva's grief to turn to madness, and he wanders around aimlessly and cries out for his late wife in his sleep. Kama's second arrow compels Shiva to harass a group of seers and their wives. And finally, as Kama was about to loose one more arrow, Shiva finally noticed him. Shiva opened the third eye in his forehead and burned Kama to ashes. According to another version told in the Kumarasambhava, a 5th century poem by the playwright Kalidasa, Kama didn't just shoot his arrows at Shiva for fun. He was actually trying to save the gods from a serious problem. A powerful Asura was terrorizing the gods, and the only one who could defeat him was Shiva's son Skanda. The problem? Well, Skanda hadn't been born yet, and Shiva was not exactly in a romantic mood. Still grieving the loss of his first wife Sati, he had completely withdrawn from the world, immersing himself in deep meditation. The gods needed Shiva to get married, and fast. Enter Kama, whose powers could interrupt Shiva's meditation long enough to get him to notice the beautiful and pious goddess Parvati. The plan worked, as in Shiva did end up marrying Parvati, but as in the other version, Shiva was angered by the interruption and incinerated Kama with his third eye. In this version, Kama's wife Rati gets involved and begs Shiva to return her husband back to life, which he does, but only in a bodiless form. Thus, the bonfires of Holi represent the burning of Kama, while the throwing of colors on the next day represents his revival. Another story underpinning the color throwing on the second day of Holi is about the god Krishna. Now, if you've read stories about Krishna's youth in texts like the Bhagavata Purana, the Gita Govinda, and the Girga Samhita, you'll know they're filled with romance, sensuality, and playful mischief. Krishna is often depicted flirting with the gopis, or the young cowherd maidens, but his most famous love story is with Radha, who is widely considered his chief consort. And according to one version of the story, the whole tradition of throwing colors during Holi started with Krishna and Radha, and it all came down to skin color. In more modern depictions, Krishna's complexion is a light to medium blue, but he's classically thought of having much darker skin. One of his Sanskrit epithets is Shyama, which means black or dark blue, and even his name itself stems from the Sanskrit term for dark or black. Radha, on the other hand, is typically described as having a pale golden complexion. One day, Krishna notices this difference, and he starts worrying that Radha wouldn't love him because of his skin color. Krishna's mother came up with an idea. If he and Radha smeared colored powder on each other's faces, they could change their complexion to any color they wanted. And just like that, Holi's Festival of Colors was born. Now, it aims to be a light-hearted story, though it echoes an uncomfortable reality today that discrimination against darker skin, or colorism, continues to shape love and marriage in South Asia to this day. A prejudice that has existed in South Asia for centuries, though British colonial rule reinforced this through its racial hierarchies. Returning to the legend itself, this exact story about Krishna and Radha is difficult to locate in the textual record, though one Sanskrit text called the Girga Samhita does feature an account of Krishna playing Holi with Radha and his other special female friends. In places where Krishna devotion is particularly strong, like the northern Indian region known as Braj, Holi festivals can become a literal battle of the sexes, in a tradition called Latmar Holi, which roughly translates to stick-hitting Holi. Women arm themselves with sticks and playfully attack the men, who try their best to defend themselves with shields. Other major locations linked with Krishna, like Mathura and Vrindavan, also in Braj, are home to some of the longest Holi celebrations. The festivities don't just start the night before, they kick off a full 40 days earlier, with yet another springtime festival called Vasant Panchami. This marks the official countdown to Holi, and in between Vasant Panchami and Holi, Krishna devotees celebrate yet another festival, Fulera Duj, also known as the Holi of Flowers. Instead of throwing colored powders, people shower each other with flower petals and make offerings to Krishna. And there are a lot of Holi-adjacent celebrations across India, each with its own local traditions. In the state of West Bengal, Holi coincides with Dol Yatra, a festival that also celebrates the love of Radha and Krishna. Murtis, or sacred statues of the beloved couple, are decorated with flowers, placed on swings, and paraded through the streets. In Maharashtra, yet another spring festival called Rang Panchami is celebrated 5 days after Holi, and in the Indian state of Goa, Holi is known as Shigmo, which lasts for 14 days and features parades, music, and folk dances. And Holi and Holi-adjacent traditions are not just limited to Hinduism. Among Sikhs in the Indian state of Punjab, the day after Holi marks the beginning of a 3-day festival called Hola Mohalla, which dates back to the late 1600s and early 1700s when it was founded by Guru Gobind Singh, the last human Sikh guru. For Sikhs, Hola Mohalla doesn't replace Holi, but rather builds on it, and according to some, the name Hola is a masculinized form of the feminine word holy. The festival revolves around displays of martial skill, including mock battles and horse riding, but also has a strong devotional and communal aspect. Holi and its many related holidays are also celebrated outside of India, in Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and even the Muslim-majority country of Pakistan, where Hindus make up only 2% of the population. Hinduism also has a widespread diaspora outside the subcontinent. And so Holi celebrations can be found in the Pacific region, Africa, the Caribbean, North and South America, the UK, and throughout Europe. In many Caribbean countries, for example, Holi is a national holiday, referred to as Phagua, a variation of the Sanskrit name of the Hindu month of Phalguna. For example, in Guyana, where over 30% of the population is Hindu, Phagua has been a national holiday since the country's independence in 1966. Holi has also grown in popularity in the UK, Canada, and the United States. Hindu temples in major cities and Hindu student associations at universities hold yearly festivals that honor the holiday's Hindu and Indian origins. In places like Queens, the holiday is mostly linked with the Indo-Caribbean community and has been celebrated for over 3 decades with the annual Richmond Hill Phagua Parade. Now, Holi is famous for its playfulness and joy, but it's not without its problems. For one, there's been a lot of reporting on how the colored powders and liquids used in some celebrations can contain toxic substances. Heavy metals like lead, fine particulates like asbestos and mica dust, and even powdered glass. Not exactly a recipe for fun. So, eco-conscious Holi enthusiasts around the world have advocated for a chemical-free Holi, relying on the natural ingredients that have traditionally been used to make the powders, like turmeric, petals from flowers like hibiscus and marigold, and sandalwood paste. And as you can imagine, the anything-goes spirit of Holi isn't always harmless fun. For example, according to BBC reporting, Holi often sees a rise in harassment and sexual assault. Some women told the BBC they're often scared of encountering men on Holi, especially those intoxicated with bhang, that liquid form of cannabis I mentioned before. And instigators often dismiss and trivialize their bad behavior with the phrase, "Don't get offended, it's Holi." So while Holi is a time for joy and celebration, it's also a reminder that not everyone gets to enjoy the fun on equal terms. Moving on, let me ask you a random question. Who owns Holi? With millions of Hindus celebrating Holi in different ways, you might assume it's a cultural tradition that no one person or group owns. But in Europe and the US, there actually have been attempts to trademark Holi for commercial use. A Utah-based Krishna temple tried to do this back in 2012, and a trademark war broke out in Europe over competing Holi-inspired festivals. These are basically music festivals going by names like Holi One and Holi Festival of Colors. According to the legal scholar Brooke Olausen, the commercialization of Holi in Europe started when 5 German entrepreneurs tried to turn the festival into a business venture. But things got messy when the original group split into 2 rival companies, each trying to trademark Holi-related names and gain exclusive commercial rights to Holi-style color festivals. The Germany-based Holi Festival of Colors, which has taken place almost every year since 2012, was born out of this Holi war. And aside from the name and the colorful powder, it really has nothing to do with the actual Hindu festival. For one thing, it's not a religious or cultural celebration at all, it's a touring music festival, and each year it rolls out a brand new theme, like Feel the Jungle in 2016, or Crazy Wonderland in 2017. Not exactly authentic references to Hindu sacred stories, and astute viewers will also remember that the actual festival of Holi occurs at the beginning of spring, usually in March, but the Holi Festival of Colors tours year-round. In 2025, the year I'm releasing this video, the festival will take place in August. That said, these Holi trademark wars and knockoff festivals haven't stopped Hindus across Europe from organizing their own Holi celebrations. So if you're looking to celebrate Holi abroad, it might be worth double-checking that the event you'll be attending is not some random music festival. Thanks to today's sponsor, Incogni, a service that protects your personal data from data brokers. Our personal information is scattered across the internet, often without our knowledge. Data brokers collect this information and sell it to third parties, including everything from your home address to your online activity and even your social security number. This can lead to spam, robocalls, and in the worst case scenario, identity theft. And once your information is out there, it's really difficult to track down who has it and to get rid of it. That's where Incogni comes in. Incogni automatically contacts data brokers on your behalf, requests that your data be removed, and handles any back and forth with these companies to make sure your personal information stays off the market. And you might be thinking, can't I just do this myself? And yes, you could, but it would take literally hundreds of hours to track down every single data broker. And you'd need to repeat the process every few months as new records pop up again and again. Incogni takes care of all of this for you, continuously monitoring and removing your data throughout the year. And for those of us in the US, people search sites are a particularly invasive issue. Websites like Ben Verified publish detailed personal profiles on millions of Americans, making your home address, contact information, and even family members' names available to anyone. But Incogni can help with that too with their Family and Friends plan. With this plan, you can protect up to 4 additional people, ensuring that your loved one's data is also kept safe. And the best part is, the process is entirely automated. You sign up, they do the work, and your data stays protected. If you're on the fence, Incogni offers a risk-free 30-day trial so you can try it out for yourself. And to sign up, use my code RFBIncogni at the link below to get an exclusive 60% off an annual plan. Again, that's RFBIncogni. Thanks everyone.